What is up, nerds? My name is Jeremy Nathaniel Akers, and I want to talk to you about probably my least favorite liberating structure, purpose to practice. Now, I know you're shocked. How is it possible that I could have a least favorite liberating structure? And well, it's fucking true. Deal with the cognitive dissonance. I know. I love these things, and yet this one, I think this one's the least juicy. Why? Why is it the least juicy? Probably because it's the easiest to screw purpose to practice up. It's big, it's long, it's cumbersome, it's difficult. It's about a bunch of boring ass topics that you're probably going to need to address. But I think you could probably better address them just in the general pursuit of your goal. Let me give you some game. Let me show you why. So, purpose to practice is about 5 different topics. 5. That was weird. It's late. Leave me alone. And my chair is real fucking squeaky. Sorry. Purpose to practice about 5 different topics. I think about it about in terms of like working the first half of the eco cycle, right? Maturity is our goal space. We're looking for things that bear fruit, fruiting bodies per se, right? And purpose to practice is going to help you to get set up to make that path to maturity, like, have a high probability win. And so what are we going to do? We're going to focus on purpose. What makes our work, Jesus fucking Christ. Man, I'm just too tired for this shit, guys. I'm sorry, but I'm not so sorry that I'm going to record this thing over again. Hey, go ahead and fucking deal with it. We're going to focus on purpose. What makes our work meaningful, significant, and important, both to ourselves individually as well as our stakeholders, our community. Why does our work matter? Then we're going to focus on our principles. All right. Purpose, I think, is often about problems, right? It's about addressing problems, or it can also be about vision of the future. But guess what? That vision of the future is often moving away from something and towards something new. Regardless, our second topic in purpose to practice is around our principles. And you can think about principles as what rules must we follow and must not sort of do in order to make progress towards our purpose, right? What rules must we follow in order to accomplish our purpose? After that, we have our participants, right? Our participants. And yes, the placement of these things on the eco-cycle tracks, right? Principles, the rules that we need to follow are the things that are going to give fertility to these seeds. The scarcity trap for many initiatives and projects is around participants, right? Who are the people that we must have participation from if we are going to be successful and pursuant of our purpose? Without the people, without the labor, the hearts and minds and hands of the humans, ain't shit happening. After we've got the participants sort of mapped out, then the question becomes the structures, right? How are we going to organize and especially distribute authority and power and agency so that we can, guess what, accomplish our purpose? And finally, in terms of our path to maturity, what are the actual practices that we're going to do? What are we actually going to do for our clients? And of course, once we have matched out the what we're going to do, how in God's name are we going to go about doing it, right? And I think you can think about this as process, but practices is so much better. Because no matter what you think, no matter what your end state is that you have in your brain, both it in reality and the path up to it are a set of experiments. And it's like, I want to play a beautiful song, so I better practice my ass off. So those are the basic nuts and bolts of purpose to practice. and that is sort of how they nest onto the eco cycle. What you'll notice is that purpose to practice is a very min-spec sort of foundation setting, right? So we use purpose to practice in our setup phase of our project, our initiative, or whatever our crew is, our team, our organization. We do that to set good foundations. And why do we make use of purpose to practice? Because it's going to help us focus on what is actually essential to set good foundations. It isn't necessarily full of lots of bloatware, although people seem to love bloatware when it comes to setting up teams. In my less than humble opinion, purpose to practice cannot be short enough. Actually, you should do it in the very last way. So I'm going to show you like the most expansive way to do it first. Then I'm going to show you a sort of medium or average or the technical by the book way to do it second. And then I'm going to show you how I would suggest to do it, which is the fastest and dirtiest alpha. Get that minimum viable project on the board, the back of the napkin sketch of your purpose to practice down, and get on with the motherfucking work. So if we're going to do a max spec purpose to practice, like I said, our starting point is purpose. And again, question doesn't change. What makes our work important to ourselves and the wider community? And we want to sort of slot that purpose statement into a format that you maybe have seen me talk about with regards to 9 whys, and that is blank exists to ... And here you want your big strong verb, your action word. What does it exists to? Create. That's a strong action word. To prevent, that's a strong action word, right? So you want to use that sort of 9-word purpose statement format. Man, I don't know how to talk anymore. Forgive me, humans. Forgive me. So, that's the vibe. So, we're talking about max specs, though, right, in this first go-round. And for the max spec, we want to think about, like, what is a particular liberating structure that we might use to help us answer this question adequately. And of course, Willow, chill out. Like, there's nobody in the garden. Oh, sorry again, guys. This is going to be disruption. Let me just get on with it. One less disruption. So the classic OG that most people love with regards to purpose, and some people hate because it's a challenging structure, is 9 whys. 9 whys works in the form of inquiry. I got another video on it. Go fucking find it. A better structure that I would recommend is drawing together. Like, purpose statements are fine. Even this one is lean and like really try and stick it within 9 words. 9 words, plus or minus 0. Even with that, you have a 50-50 chance of having like a bullshit bingo, like word salad sort of thrown at you that doesn't mean shit to anybody. So by leaning into drawing together, we can give ourselves a visual artifact that means this approximately, but is also interpretable by everybody who knows the visual design language of drawing together. Check that out. Try and make your purpose statement by drawing together. Another better way of formulating your purpose statement might be with wicked questions. Can you set your purpose statement? What makes your work meaningful and important to you and your community? Can you make that in a wicked question? Our purpose statement is to find out how we can do, autonomy and integration at the same time. This is a challenging purpose, and it sort of speaks to our ambition. Of course, we can make use of what, so what, now what, to form our purpose statement, right? What are the facts? What are the data? What are the inferences, the meaning and significance of that data? And now what are we trying to do in relation to that, to give ourselves that stack of inference on the stacked blocks of inference to define our purpose. And of course, we could also make use of this is a non-standard structure for this purpose, certainly, but critical uncertainties, right? Draw your 2x2 matrix, decide what is critical and what is uncertain, and look at those 4 scenarios and define your purpose as your journey from whatever scenario you're in now to whatever ideal scenario is there that you'd like to get to. So our purpose is to go from here and get to there. That's what we would really like to accomplish. Who's coming with us? So these are sort of max spec purposes. And when we think about max spec purpose, we're thinking like the ballpark of 30 minutes to as much as 2 hours you could easily spend on like critical uncertainties. Nothing sketchy about that at all. Max spec, but you've got yourself a very high fidelity, interesting, juicy, detailed purpose statement. Let's fucking go. Principles. What rules must we follow in order to realize our purpose? Now, of course, the OG king of the mountain for principles is often appreciative interviews. You tell your story about a time that went like, our purpose statement, and I'll tell you a story that went like our purpose statement. And in between those 2 stories, we'll find a bunch of shit that is good signal for us to follow. That stuff, those are our principles. Another way to formulate principles is very, very popular is min specs. Come up with all the rules that we could follow, max specs, max specs, max specs, and then go through that item. If we broke this rule, could we still be successful? Then it's out. If we broke this rule, could we still be successful? Yeah, then it's out. If we broke this rule, could we still be successful? No, it is in. That is our min spec. Right? And then we cross off things, we toss out everything except for that which is absolutely essential. Min specs with regards to rules. Great, do it. Another non-standard but obvious winner is 25-10 crowdsourcing, right? You and a bunch of your friends, each grab an index card and write down your best idea for a rule. This is a rule we must follow. This is a principle we must lean into if we're going to be successful accomplishing our purpose. Everybody's index card gets scored on a scale of 1 to 5 by 5 random people. Every person scores 5 random index cards, right? So that way every index card gets 5 random scores on a scale of 1 to 5. The index cards that have the score closest to 25, those are in, the rest are out. Just fucking good enough for now. Let's move on, right? Enough, let's move on. Elmo. Another great way to define our principles is with a conversation cafe. Go once around the circle, sort of talking about the rules that you think we need to follow. Go once around the circle, talking about the shares of other people, talking about what you heard from others. Have some unstructured group discussion where we sort of like ping pong and, bounce ideas off of each other. And then in going once around the circle, everybody shares their final takeaway. All right, this is it for me. 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 That. Bam, we've got ourselves some principles. Good enough for now, safe enough to move on. Another really interesting and non-standard way to define your principles, the rules you must follow in order to accomplish your goals, is with agreement certainty matrix. So the agreement certainty matrix, right? So how far are we from agreement about what must be done? So this is close to agreement. That's far from agreement. And how far are we from certainty about what needs to be, about how it should be done? This is close to certain, and this is far from certain, right? And things that are close to certain and close to agreeable are simple. They have one vibe and one recipe to search that search space. Things that are farther from certainty, from agreement, and farther from certainty have another vibe. They have another recipe about how to search that solution space. And things that are, pretty close, terrifically uncertain, and terrifically disagreeable have a totally different vibe and rule set when it comes to exploration. And of course, things in this sort of complex, pretty damn pretty damn disagreeable or diverse, pretty damn uncertain. They have another particular vibe and set of rules. I think if you had a set of rules for each of those scenarios and encouraged people to sort of say, figure out which rule set applies to you, you would be infinitely better off than just assuming the way we normally do. That's a hot take. First published here rather than anywhere. I mean, except for wherever Dave Snowden shows up. We love you, Dave. And I know you think your thing is better than the Stacy Matrix, and I generally agree, but I think the Stacy Matrix is easier to conceptualize and explain to people that are unfamiliar with it. Nevertheless, because I don't have to explain shit about complex adaptive systems and shit like that, blah, blah, blah. All right, third up, participants. Participants. So, who must be included in order to achieve our purpose? Of course, social network webbing is a great idea. Make a map of who is in the core of your initiative, who is in the sort of adjacent to your initiative, and who is out here on the periphery to your initiative, right? Who's in your design circle, who's in your feedback circle, and who's the community you want to keep in the loop, right? Whatever you like, standard 2x2, stakeholder mapping bullshit, whatever. Great. Awesome. Good enough. It'll definitely do the trick. You can also think about making use of simple ethnography. Why don't you go fucking look around, right? Why don't you go observe some reality? Why don't you gather some data about who must be included in order to achieve your purpose? Just try it out. Another thing you could take a look at is with regards to your primary constellation, do your star, your generative relationships. How much separateness or diversity do you have on your squad? How well do you tune or listen to one another? How well do you act in concert to get shit done? And how clear is your reason or purpose for getting shit done, right? Map that shit out and then figure out, hey, what's the missing salt in this squad? Like, do we need ourselves a Lionel Messi, whatever the fuck that guy's name is? Or do we need ourselves some Dennis Rodman up in this bitch? Some color, some flair, some big body elbow throwing motherfucker to go get them goddamn rebounds. You never know. And of course, with regards to participants, another great way to define participation is with what I need from you. Like, ask the question of your stakeholders, of your clearly defined user groups. Ask the questions of each other in your team and, deal with the consequences of those answers to those clear questions. And of course, what you could also do to define who should be involved in order to achieve your purpose? Make use of open space technology. Put up an invitation and allow people to come vibe and resonate as they will, and you will find out who keeps showing up that they need to be involved in order to achieve your purpose. We're trying to make it happen with a volunteer army, nerds, so let's use some open space technology to create some opportunities for people to do what they want to do, and we'll see who wants to fucking help. So these are ways that we can divide our participation. I'm getting a little impatient. This is why I don't fucking like purpose to practice. Now, that's not true. I love purpose to practice, but I just get impatient. Like, this is a max spec. I made it, and it still fucking irritates me, right? Think about your stakeholders. Think about the people on your team who are not so enthusiastic and don't really give a shit about having good foundations. They just want to, big air quotes, do their job. Man, this shit can really get on people's nerves, especially when we're not making progress, but we are taking lots of goddamn time to define the essentials. Anyway, moving on, structures. How must we organize, both in the micro and macro scale, as well as distribute control in order to achieve our purpose? So how must we organize and distribute control. So my favorite thing to do here is with Triz. I love Triz for structure. Let's just define what structures we don't want to have. What structures would turn this place into a fucking dumpster fire? And let's not have those. That's a great way to define your structure. Let's not do bad things. What I need from you is another good way to have emergent structure sort of let itself be known based on the requests that people have from one another and their different roles. Integrated autonomy. So integrated autonomy answers the wicked question of how is it that we're integrated and how is it that we're autonomous at the same time. It looks for this stuff. This stuff is great structure territory. Believe me. Don't believe me. I don't care. I'm telling you, that's great structure. Design storyboards, right? Make a goddamn plan. As a matter of fact, go beyond design storyboards. We're going to take a little trip here, guys. We're going to go look for slides. I apologize. I had this in my brain space, and for whatever reason, I forgot to prep it, and here we are now. So when we're talking about structures and design storyboards, use Henry's meeting macro structure. Like think about the things that the meetings that you need to have on a daily basis, right? Do we need a daily meeting? Well, let's make it fucking short, and let's use structures like what, so what, now what, 1, 2, 4, all, what I need from you, 15% solutions, Troika Consulting. Let's use shit like that for daily calls. For weekly things that we need to sync on a regular heartbeat, let's use like what I need from you, so what, now what, wise crowds, and open space technology to do that shit. And for the big monthly shindig, use the whole goddamn toolbox. Use design storyboards. That's this guy right here. I'm pointing at, and now you can see my cursor. Use design storyboards to plan any session, every session, but at least any session over an hour in length. Make sure you have a goddamn game plan and use the whole toolkit. And of course, make use of open space technology. Henry's meeting macro structures basically just breaks down liberating structures into these different buckets and says, hey, specify for yourself what type of meetings we need and what type of structure we're going to use for those goddamn meetings. I could show you more, but these are fucking slides that are available on the Liberating Structures global community of practice, Google Drive. Anybody can get them. If you go to wisecrowds.xyz, there's shit tons of links at the bottom of that webpage. Fucking send me a DM if you really cannot fucking find it. But shit is out there. That's my point. And last but not least, make use of these network patterning cards. Network patterning cards are cool. They go through different patterns. Go figure. Different ways that you can organize a network. And anywhere there's people, yes, there is a network. So take a look at those network patterning cards and think about how you want to design your collaboration space, your structures. How do we want to connect to one another? What are patterns that make sense for my role, actually, or for the way that I do my work and the content of my work, and for our work together versus the larger environment that our work falls into, right? The micro and macro of our structure. And finally, practices. Oh, yes, I know. And this is why I think purpose to practice drives me a little zany, is that the practices, the actual what are we going to do, what will we offer our clients, and how are we going to go about doing it, this is the one I care about. This is the one that most people care about. And to wait until the end to get to it is kind of going to piss people off, right? It's going to frustrate some folks. It's frustrating me right now. So let's talk about how we're going to define, what we're going to do and how we're going to go about doing it. And my cat is playing with my kids' Legos that they didn't put away on the table. That's just the vibe. I guess I should have cleaned that shit up, but I was making this shit for you nerds, so I hope you appreciate that. Practices. How can we decide what we're going to do? Again, critical uncertainties. We can do that scenario planning and that situational analysis to figure out where we are and where we're going. And that can be our path of what we're going to do and help us understand how we're going to do it. Of course, the OG and probably best in the world at this is eco-cycle planning. It can be used for a reflective tool. That's how we most often use it in the Liberating Structures community of practice. Take all of the shit on your laundry list of tasks and the shit that keeps you busy, plot it where it belongs in the eco-cycle, and figure out what you can nudge in order to get the whole damn thing to flow. That's the way we use it most of the time. But we can also think of it from the perspective of like future backwards, or, okay, so this is where we're going. This is our mature state. How the God's name are we going to get there? What sacred cows might we have to sort of bump up against and creatively destroy in order to make space for this new idea? And what new ideas might we be able to bring into birth and realize our mature state? Totally effective. It's also great to think about the end of life of the thing you're creating right now, so you'll know when it's time to put it out to pasture, rather than leaving a legacy of scarred earth and trauma for your great grandchildren to figure out. Better to have a plan for how you're going to know when it's time to get rid of, right? And of course, panarchy. Panarchy, the big baddie, that badass bitch that helps us understand how the whole thing, lots of things, not the whole thing, but many things fit together. Looking at the parts that themselves are wholes and the context that those wholes / parts fall into, the context those parts fall into, the context those wholes set going on ad infinitum. Make the situational assessments of lots of different eco-cycles at lots of different scales of abstraction, and figure out where the nudges are that can affect the context above and below. If we can move and start to influence those things, those interventions that we think, hey, if we could do something here, it would affect the whole damn thing up and down the stack. That could be our practice. That can be our test on our experiment. And of course, what, so what, now what? Look at the facts on the ground, look at what those mean, and decide a test that you want to run to challenge or learn something about those facts and influence them. These are great ways to define our practices, right? You can see that, Jesus Christ, how long is this video already? You can take an infinite amount of time on the max spec, and that is the risk. That is the risk with purpose to practice. You can take way more time than you justify spending on setting good foundations. You can spend more time setting foundations. It reminds me of like the very, very first Scrum team that I was not a part of, that I ever had to coach as an Agile coach person, was a group of marketers that were 20% allocated towards this team, this cross-functional marketing team. All the different disciplines of marketing were in this team. The fucking chief of branding, the chief of fucking copywriting, the chief of, I don't even remember all the elements of marketing, but all the different types of marketers were there. 20% allocation towards a team. I'll have you know, you burn more than 20% of your mental capacity switching contexts, unless you're an ADHD wizard like myself. So these motherfuckers were furious because they were trying to do all the Scrum ceremonies, which, guess what? Surprise, surprise, take 20% of your time. So they spent literally 100% of the time that they were together on this cross-functional team, doing the essentials of good foundations, doing good practice, which was totally, totally overblown and didn't give them any time to actually do the work that they were sort of planning out. So that's my gripe, is that you got to be terrifically careful to actually avoid the max spec. And what do you need to do before you get to the max spec? Well, again, here we are. We're in this fractal pattern where we can look at things at different scales of fidelity and resolution. My pro tip would be to run through purpose to practice as fast as you fucking can until you notice that, oh shit, the answer that we had for purpose, we learned something that actually calls that into question, or changes the direction on that. So we need to take a closer look at what purpose is. And then and only then do we zoom in and we use a bigger structure to define our purpose. Until, you know what? Hey, we define our purpose and all our practices with this new information. And now that we've realized, until, oh shit, surprise, surprise, there she is again. We've learned something new. We need to get an even more detailed view, right? So start with just defining big, sort of awkward chunks. Don't make it pretty. Like I said, back of the napkin sketch for purpose to practice is great. So what are a couple ways we can get more of that back of the napkin sketch vibe? So we can shrink I think if we take the average of all of those different structures, we're probably a half a day, maybe 2 days to define purpose to practice. Like if you think about your typical strategy session, your offsite or onsite or whatever retreat, that's usually 2 days. And you're usually trying to shore up this type of shit, right? So what could we do to shrink that down and sort of get ourselves a sketch quicker? We could make use of 1, 2, 4 all. At 2 times, as a matter of fact. So 1, 2, 4 all to get the ideas on the board. 1, 2, 4 all to sort of coalesce and decide around each of these topics. In 30 minutes, you'll have a pretty good idea of, okay, we can actually engage, 100 people to collaboratively sort of define our purpose. It'll be a lot of messy, sort of overlapping statements, but hey, it's better than nothing. And it's good enough for now, safe enough to move on. 1, 2, 4 all 2 times for every single one of these questions will have you in 2.5 hours through purpose to practice. You will have definitely a better than bad answer. If you do this in your team, you'll have good information. If you do this in a group of 40 people, you will be able to process that information good enough to move on. But you know what? Good enough's not good enough. Willow, god damn it, I'm busy. I know you want to play with the ball. I know. Here, I'm gonna have to take your goddamn squeaky toy. You keep doing. All right, I'll throw it once. I'm not gonna throw it again. Maybe I will. Leave me alone. Sorry, guys. Dogs. But you're an ambitious son of a bitch. You think you can do better. And I believe you can too. So if you want to get into the most min-spec purpose to practice and really get the back of the napkin sketch, make use of the sort of architecture that is discovery, action, dialogue. So discovery, action, dialogue, this is not rocket science. This is the most standard vanilla out of the box meeting format that everybody knows and loves already. Have somebody host the goddamn meeting. Have somebody be dedicated to take down notes and scribe for people. And then set yourself a time box that is 1 minute per person for 1 minute per person for each one of these questions, and just have an open conversation. Somebody hosts and ensures that this question, that everybody gets to tee off on this question, and somebody writes that shit down. In this constellation of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, I don't know how many sides are on hexagons apparently, or how many corners hexagons have. So 6 minutes times 5 questions, purpose to practice, right? 30 minutes. You'll have a draft in 30 minutes. That is, I'm sure, going to be good enough. You'll have some diversity. You'll have to harden that shit down into something. But guess what? Take those notes that your scribe just created, dump them into ChatGPT, and say, hey, what makes the work important to ourselves and our wider community in 9 words? And ChatGPT will fucking give you a summary of that shit. Ta-da! 30 minutes for an alpha purpose to practice is sufficient. That's the vibe. That's the vibe. And so that is the most essential of purpose to practice. That's the simplest, most min-spec. I probably should have started with that one, but starting with that forces me to explain kind of the whole thing. And I wanted to explain all of the juicy nitty-gritty nuance. Sorry, guys, that's what I'm saying. If I am feeling very ambitious, and you really, really want me to, I will record it the other way around, just for you. Actually, I won't. I'll just record this one, and then, why don't you just skip to here? You should be listening to these on double speed, obviously. So that's purpose to practice. I want to run through real briefly like some contemporaries to purpose to practice, some of which I love more than others, but to give you a basis of comparison for the way that purpose to practice intentionally doesn't do most of this shit in order to make things leaner and the more simplified. I really like the chaotic stepping stones. These came from something face from the Jesus. That was someone something face. Yeah, I just said it. From the Art of Hosting community. Dan, Chris, I don't know, some white dude. You know how it is. White people all look alike. Everybody knows it. Oh, maybe that was offensive. I'm just making my own fun. Deal with it. So, chaotic stepping stones are great, especially when you're in a complex environment. You're not quite sure what you're going to do, and certainly not how you're going to do it, right? And you can see this sort of overlap here, our sort of need or why and purpose, and our participants, our people, right? Our principles, the rules, and our practices, the sort of what we're going to do and how we're going to go about doing it. And then, of course, our structures, right? Our architecture, our implementation, right? These are very structure-y things. Even though this says structures, I think we mean them in different ways. But you know what? Maybe your method is your structure, right? Maybe your concept is part of your structure. Maybe the limited beliefs should be integrated into your structure. These ones right here are great. Limiting beliefs are very high value. And like rarefied is the bunch of nerds that's going to recognize that they should pay attention to this shit. And legion are the people who think, hey, this shit is stupid. I don't want to think about this stuff. Otherwise, thinking about bad feelings will make bad feelings appear. I shit you not. That's how people work. So chaotic stepping stones are great. As you can see, there's an overlap, and there's a lot of extra shit in here that is really useful, especially if you don't know what you're doing exactly and certainly don't have a clear idea of how you're going to go ahead and accomplish that. This is from Promoting the Emergence of Team Flow in Organizations by Jesus. I forgot that dude's name as well. So, but again, overlap, collective ambition, purpose. Practice, right? Also collective ambition, the audacious team goal, the principles, the mutual commitment, the safety, the rules we must follow, the aligned personal goals around the participants, and high skill integration, the structures that are going to enable our skill integration and our open communication, right? These are good things that enable these 4 things to sort of emerge. So some overlap, right? Team Canvas. Team Canvas is out there. It's everywhere. Agilists love this shit. Again, purpose, right in there. Roles and skills. Participants that are in there too. Principles, rules, values type shit. Practices, rules and expectations. Structures. Where are structures there? Of course, everybody knows you're going to fucking Scrum. So Scrum takes care of your structures, kind of, but not really. And as you can see, whole bunch of stuff, on top of that, right? Good stuff, reasonably good stuff, right? But maybe you need it, maybe you don't. That's my point. And if you look at the team canvas, the most basic, stripped down, lean and mean version of this team canvas, then we get back to our purpose, our principles, Our participants, our structures, and our practices. Good old-fashioned min-spec purpose to practice. That's how we do it, nerds. Min-spec your purpose to practice. Get a sketch on the back of the napkin as quick as possible and get on to doing the things. Test your assumptions, find your 15% solutions, and make baby steps towards your goals. This is all I want from you. My name is Jeremy Akers, Jeremy Nathaniel Akers. This has been a Wise Crowds production. I appreciate you bearing through my stuttering, my noisy cats, my needy dog, and, just my general doing things in the wrong order, good enough for now, safe enough to try sort of vibe and attitude. I appreciate you hanging out for this. And if you're still here, man, go the fuck to bed. I'm going to bed too, man. Kisses, nerds. I'll see you around.